My name again is Deborah Yao. I'm the editor of AI Business, which is a news and insights website focusing on artificial intelligence at the intersection of business. And I'm here, I'm very thrilled to be here today. And thank you for joining the panel. And I want to welcome two lovely guests. I'll start to the left. It's Ahola Ward, who is co-founder and CEO of CircleClick and former COO of Upload VR. And also Joe Stolte, CEO of Futurist, and he's had other high-level positions elsewhere, and they'll talk about that in a bit. So welcome, both of you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's start with introductions. Tell us about your companies and what you do, and also what you're linked to crypto and AI, or either one.
Sure. So my name, as she said, is Ahola Ward. I am best known as the mother of startups, which I was dubbed by CNN in 2017. I'm a published O'Reilly author and technical SEO who got into the field as it was forming. I also got into the field of crypto as it was forming and was the first woman to complete an STO under ERC 884. I am also just an all-around nerd and love all things tech. I would say as an SEO, I've been touching AI-related tools since I can remember. This is probably my third hype cycle in AI, but SEOs are very familiar with AI because it has been part of our lives. And, you know, a benefactor, a demon, all, you know, angel, devil, all of that. So we'll get into that.
And I'm Joe Stolte. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Daily.ai, formerly called Futurist. We rebranded about 6 weeks ago. And I've spent the last decade in tech. I'm a fifth-time founder with 3 exits. My overlap with crypto is when I started my first technology company, I left Seattle and I moved to Venice Beach in LA. And we had this sort of hacker house where people would come and hang out. And there was this gentleman that would come hang out at our house named Brock Pierce. And he was telling me, oh, you should, you know, take blockchain or specifically Bitcoin as a payment mechanism for your startup. And that was kind of the intro. And then when the next sort of wave came, we were fortunate enough to invest in the Ethereum ICO. And then a few years later, as the COO of a company called Lottery.com, which ended up going public on a SPAC for $526 million. We led the first security token offering as well for like a corporate entity that wasn't a fund at the time. And for those of you guys that remember that era, it was very wild, wild west. You know, we were basically raising capital on a financial instrument based in the blockchain world that required us to basically write blind opinion letters to the SEC and communicate through like third parties. And, you know, it was very wild west. And, you know, I think we raised maybe $60 million or something like that on that security token offering. And, you know, and ever since then, I've just been an avid watcher of technology, specifically converging technologies. How do things like blockchain and IoT and AI converge? And after I sold my last company, I met my new business partner today. His name is Dr. Peter Diamandis. And, you know, we started this company, Futurist, which is now Daily.ai. And we use AI to help thought leaders and small brands create AI automated email newsletters. And I'm happy to dig more into that. But that's my mercifully short, self-aggrandizing introduction.
Yeah, I want to know how you managed to achieve like 40 to 60% open rates, having AI power your email newsletters. So maybe we'll talk later. But anyway, well, thank you for that introduction. So a little bit about AI today. AI is having its iPhone moment, according to mainstream media, although it's been around for decades and even longer, perhaps. But it was coined in around the 1950s, but you know, with ChatGPT, thanks to ChatGPT, it's becoming kind of a household word. And the only other time I can think of, and maybe Anne, you can correct me on this, that AI was thrust into the public consciousness was in 1997 when IBM beat Garry Kasparov, and you know, that's brute force AI and narrow AI, right? But now with ChatGPT, they're talking of perhaps we might even achieve artificial general intelligence. But that's a conversation for another time. We're here to talk crypto. So talking about AI in general and generative AI in particular, can you tell me how AI currently is being used in the crypto industry? And specifically, how do you think generative AI will change this landscape?
Well, I think where the fun stuff is happening is obviously DeFi. because you've got programmable money. You need to do things like predict trends. You need to understand and analyze large pieces of data that are largely structured and therefore can be analyzed. So I think that's really where I'm seeing the most exciting sort of mashup. But, is it going to help us predict when to buy what and when to sell what? Yeah. Let's stay cautiously optimistic on that. But that's the space that I'm the most interested in personally. I do think that it's going to shortcut tasks, but I also think that if something doesn't, I want to say, yeah, it's going to make usability better. I really would love, everyone wants that to just get done for us. But if there's no natural intelligence solving a problem, we cannot expect artificial intelligence to solve that same problem. So that's where I kind of get a little, okay, we're being pie in the sky here, not to be a naysayer, but I think the actual real application now that can be solved is all in DeFi.
Joe?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I wouldn't say that AI is having its iPhone moment. I would say AI is having its electricity moment, because its impact on our species is actually more like electricity than it was like the iPhone. In fact, it might even be more important than electricity. Just if you think about the way that the world changed, before we had electricity and then after we had electricity, from the way that we travel, the way that we communicate, the way that we pretty much do everything. And I think, Kevin Kelly was, as he usually is, genius in 2016 when he said basically everything that will be electrified will be cognified, meaning everything that has electricity, we're just going to put intelligence into it, some form of AI, whether that's computer vision or generative AI or machine learning. And I genuinely believe that is where the rubber meets the road on innovation in all things, especially in crypto. And I think there's, generally speaking, the mental model that I use for, how is AI going to impact X, is it basically comes down to two broad categories. The first category is personalization, and the second one is automation. And so if you start thinking about today's applications in crypto and blockchain, of which there are many, right? So whether that's DeFi or NFTs or AR, VR, metaverses, et cetera, anything that was being computationally done by a human is in very short order is going to be computationally done by AI. So I think that's extraordinary. But to your point, that's not necessarily going to deliver us these beautiful UIs and this seamless user experience that we've been craving for like 7 years or whatever. And then the other thing is personalization. So I think once we sort of solve this user experience gap, which is going to take a lot more than AI to get us over, and I think we're going to see a lot of really incredible things. Whether that's, if you think about the metaverse and just the way that AI can run computational intelligence in the background to approximate things like NPCs or the way that virtual worlds behave. There's a significant advantage from a development perspective on how we're able to create these rich, meaningful experiences. But when we think about crypto in general, like those are the two areas that I say, okay, how's this going to impact it? Great. Automation, and those seem to be fairly obvious. And I think personalization is also incredible when you start thinking about smart contracts and NFTs, just the way it's able to interact with your metadata, hopefully in a very secure, immutable way. It's going to be able to give you a really tremendous personalized experience without a third party interfering. And I think that has such an extraordinary surface area to impact us in the way we think about the future. But again, I agree the chasm that needs to be bridged is, we have to make the blockchain world feel like the rest of the digital world. The analogy I like to use is like if you've seen the movie Iron Man 1, he gets locked in the cave and the first version of the suit that he builds is like this big clunky thing and it's like wires hanging out and it can blow fire. It gets the job done, but it's nowhere near the streamlined, beautiful suit that he goes home and builds. Like that, the streamlined, beautiful suit is kind of the UI we're used to. And the UI we get in the blockchain experience is almost always the big clunky, wires exposed, like, oh, you can do it, but don't push that button and don't go over here. That
log into MetaMask.
Yeah, like that to me, I call that the MetaMask suit. Not to degrade MetaMask, because I think they're providing a very highly needed functional utility. We're just at this place in the innovation cycle where we can see a better experience, not on blockchain. So it makes it very difficult to suffer through something else until the benefits are up there. So we really need to get through that moment where we go from this like clunky metal Iron Man suit to the streamlined, beautiful thing. And then once we get there, then the magic will happen and then AI will really, really be able to do its work.
Yeah. So of course AI also is helping the exchanges, right, making them more optimal, and also for cybersecurity. So AI can help in that regard also in crypto. So talking about AI, and I love that analogy with Iron Man, do you think with AI, it can make crypto and NFTs more of a household word and more mainstream? Do you think it has that capability to reinvent the UI, to make it more efficient, to make it more automated, and perhaps bridge that chasm that you talked about?
I mean, my honest answer is I wish. The fact is that we have a usability problem. We have a, shut up and take my money moment problem. We have just a general, we're not in an emerging market where there's a leapfrogging happening, right? Because US cash, iPhone, Apple Pay, those tend to work. And so people don't see that need just yet. It's only really these edge cases of gaming and international payments. And, would I like AI to magically come in and solve these problems? Absolutely. Do I think that it will? Nope.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that we really need to solve what is the blockchain use case and what actual problem is it solving in the world? And we need to nail that first. Right, and all of us early adopters can suffer through the big ugly metal suit experience, but the improvements need to continue. It needs to continue to a point where we can go through the adoption cycle, to go from the early adopters to the late adopters to laggards and so on and so forth. And as it does that, just like in any diffusion of technology in any market, it needs to get better. It needs to do a better job of solving that problem. We need more constituents in the marketplace cracking around at trying to solve that problem. You look at some of the best tech companies in the world, the biggest ones in the world, none of them were first, right? Like Google wasn't the first search engine. Facebook certainly wasn't the first social network. Microsoft certainly wasn't the first software company, right? And so that they were born out of the competition of solving real problems with early stage technology. And I think the unfortunate thing that happens to our space in crypto is we get lost in the greed cycles. And those have a tremendous benefit. I don't want to just make them wrong because they bring a lot of capital and attention. We just need to have more players hunker down and be responsible with the capital. If I think back to I don't know I'm lost in what crypto cycle we're in now, but back when we were pretty actively investing in the space, we did an ICO called ETHLend, and that became Aave. It took a long time. They built and built and built and built and rebranded. Now they have a real brand. They provide a materially valuable service. I'm no longer holding any assets of theirs. It's not an endorsement for an indictment against them, but that's an example of an organization, a market entrant that basically took capital and built something. And we just need more people to do that. And I believe there are people doing that now. But before AI is going to come and materially enhance the solution or the problem set, we really just need to solve the base problem. And we need to figure out how blockchain solves some of these base problems. And then we can start talking about all the rest of the world outside of the early adopters coming in and playing the game with us.
Right. The killer moment we need to have happened for AR when everyone and their sister was using Snapchat and didn't realize they were using AR. When people are using AI, which to some degree you can argue they have with what's on their phones, what's happening behind Google, people have been using it, just not being aware of it. But until that moment happens, we're not there yet.
So talking about base problems, do you think that the base issue for crypto would be fungibility? And do you think that, stable coins, it's starting to be regulated more now. So that's one solution. How do you solve that fungibility problem?
This is let's solve all crypto's problems in a 20-minute panel. I think that our regulators need to get some strong education. And I think that the goalposts have to stop moving. I think that we have to decide how we're regulating and be consistent instead of making it up as we go. Just look at Coinbase and what they're going through. Look at the work of Caitlin Long, what she's has been trying to do. And I think it's okay to evolve, but it's hard to put a stake in the ground when the ground is always moving. And I just wish everyone here at this conference would adopt a person in Congress and just be their buddy so that they can call and ask questions without fear of judgment. And then maybe we might get some more.
It's a lot of ways to think about this problem. Just from a regulatory perspective, I think that if you look at traditional finance, which has certainly got a lot of things wrong, but it's also gotten a lot of things right. There's a reason why, if you look at the way money flows through, let's say, like the stock market, there's different entities for like the broker and the clearing, and each step has a different entity that's regulated, and that's for a reason. right? Because when greed meets humanity, there's just certain things that we're able to self-restrain. There's certain things that we aren't, and probably a host of other reasons. But when you look at, let's just say like the most adopted use case in blockchain is probably the money one, right? Exchanges, tokens of value, et cetera. Our exchanges, the reason why we had the problem with FTX wasn't just a regulatory problem. It was because like we have all of these aspects of the way money clears are all crammed into one entity. So when you start flowing billions of dollars through these things, like to have human greed not come and warp that is a terrible idea, right? It's just you're just betting against our own nature, which I think is a bad bet. I believe we're great as a species. I just think when you put billions of dollars unchecked, unregulated in, like all the rest of the people that aren't good are going to come in and be like, haha. And so, part of the proliferation of regulation, I think, is figuring out like, well, what did finance, whatever we're on 1.0, 2.0 get wrong? And let's not repeat that, but let's repeat the structures and barriers and the appropriate regulations that make sense at a certain scale, not just to protect the end user, but to, in some ways, protect us from ourselves. I think it's very, very difficult to do that and have completely immutable, decentralized vision that we all had, for this space when it first started. I don't have any easy answers for that, but I do know that if we're going to propagate the most popular use case, we're going to need some more interesting regulation. And I do agree that's going to take top down. It's going to take the highest elected officials to come in and shepherd through that process because, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, but there's just incredible power concentration in the world of finance and money and capital in the world. And they're not in a hurry to move out of the way and change the way they do business. And, we need to be very thoughtful about how we approach that.
So just to end that, great points. I agree with everything. I think I went to a blockchain policy meeting held by the government in California, the state government, and they spent an entire day, and I'm not exaggerating, agreeing to the definition of what blockchain even was and couldn't agree. A room full of policymakers, industry leaders, myself, my good friend, Brittany Kaiser, couldn't agree. And then they were going to have another meeting to discuss it. So that's the level we're on. And I think we need our eyes open as to who's making the decisions here and what their skills and abilities are.
Yeah, this is like the we run ads senator moment. If you remember when Zuck was getting interviewed and I forget the person on the panel is like, well, how do you guys make money? It's like, these are the people, that we've elected to run our country for better or for worse. And so I agree. I think that, not to be overly political, but just from a systemic perspective, if we're going to be ushering in cutting edge breakthrough technologies, we should probably have politicians in office that are this not to be ageist, that maybe aren't in their 70s and 80s, and maybe are a little bit closer to what's happening with technology in our world. I'll stop there because I don't want to be overly political.
Are you announcing your run?
No, I'm definitely not. I'm a libertarian systems capitalist. So I don't have a dog in the fight, but I do think that like these things are systemic. If we want to bring systemic change, we have to think on a systems level. And if we're either going to change the existing system we have, or we're going to use it. And if we're going to use it, you might want to figure out how to put the right inputs in that system to get the right outputs. And it just doesn't seem to be the case that electing folks in their 70s and 80s en masse is the right input to produce an output that looks like understanding what's here, what's happening, and what needs to be enacted into law to enable technology and protect us.
Garbage in, garbage out.
So perhaps the next generation of lawmakers will be more tech savvy. Let's hope so.
I'll write the check if any of you guys want to run. That's not my cup of tea.
So let's go back to AI. And specifically generative AI, which is generating a lot of excitement these days. How do you think that's going to impact AR, VR, MR, and metaverse?
Well, I think there's, it's certainly making deep fakes easier. It's certainly making, a lot of repetitive processes easier. I think it's going to help maybe reduce development time in some discrete use cases. I know it will be used for good. I know it will be used for evil. And I'm not really too worried about it because I think that there will be mechanisms in place on these platforms to deal with it. But I tend to look at it in general as a superpower. I think it's something that's an enabling technology that's going to help make our lives better. We're going to see the best and the worst of it, as we always do with nascent technologies. And I think all of the people here need to play a role in educating others in the benefits versus just fear mongering, letting people be scared. I think in VR specifically, I think we're going to see the most because there's the most assistance because there is the most need for computational power. It's a processor draw. There's a lot of things that can be optimized, especially from, if you believe the code editing abilities of Bard and other tools. I don't. I've definitely seen it swing and a miss, but the fact that we're in the game is exciting.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is I just a lot of these large language learning models that power generative AI, they're general, they're not specific. And I think we're going to see a lot of very interesting things happen as two trends unfold. One, we start to take local corpuses of data, specifically the engines inside of AR, VR, metaverse, et cetera, and start to unleash these AI large language learning models on them. And secondly, when we start to see they're saying they're not going to, but we're going to continue to see the number of parameters in these LLMs increase, and then as well as the compute capacity supporting them. As that happens, we're going to see some incredibly magical things happen in that space.
Yes, LLM is the new black or the new gold.
For my last question is, we can't avoid talking about what's happening in crypto with the crackdown on crypto exchanges, with China just outlawing crypto, and so many other things going on that's kind of concerning to this market. So is there a silver lining here?
Fortune favors the bold, and I firmly believe that fear holds us back. I am looking at a full room. I'm looking at a full conference downtown. I don't think any of us are scared off by this. I think every time there's a crash, every time there's a big controversy, the people who didn't really need to be here run away. And I'm fine with that because eventually we'll have the core group and we'll keep working. I'm not scared by this. I think currency forking is nothing new. And think about how many people lost their lives in changing from bartering to paper and bank robberies, all these things. This is not new. We have a tendency to think because it's new to us, it's new, but it's actually not. So if anything, I am deeper in my resolve that I'm in the right place and I'm willing to fight for it.
Yeah, amen. The only thing I'll add to that is say, if we want to understand how this plays out, we could just go back and look at history. The birth of industries, the birth of capitalism, even going back to the Great Depression and before that, you can see when markets are early and unregulated, the amount of scrupulous activity is high, but so is the innovation, and people will need to get whacked in the head a handful of times. I don't mean to make light of anybody that's gotten burned by, let's say, FTX. I don't use those words lightly, but as a species, we tend to need to we need to touch the stove a few times before we realize that it's going to burn our hand. So these things will shake out. So I think it's natural. I think more and intelligent regulation, like we've been talking about, is necessary, needed, and will propel us forward. And I think these are the best times to find the best operators, right? Take a look around, who's still here, who's still in the room, who's still building, and who still has a fire and a passion for this and is still attracting the best talent. Yeah, this is the best time to find opportunities to invest in because this technology is not going away. The genie's been out of the bottle, and so this is a tremendous opportunity actually, as opposed to the sky is falling. I think now is the time. If you wanted to make money in this space, you're in the best possible time to be evaluating opportunities. So I'll stop there.
What an interesting and insightful conversation. Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you for joining us.